Boom! We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. And of course, welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be, and of course, however you may be listening. I want to first begin this by saying how thankful I am to everyone who has been a part of this channel. There's been a few of you who have been a part of me just doing this from the get-go. My days on Facebook. Some of you guys don't, or maybe perhaps you have forgotten about it. But I think most people just in general are not aware of this. But when I first started out doing this, obviously I started it out on my own. But then I got into touch with Cavante Martin Manley, and we worked out a little situation. And he would come on to the pregame, and he would do the, I guess, weekly podcast. Now, full transparency, since it's been a while, he was never that into it. He was always more interested in getting his shirt company taken off. But I would always tell him, I would say, dude, if we can get this podcast to where I know it can get, you can use this as a way to freely advertise your brand, your shirt company. Now, of course, I would take a little piece of that, but no, I don't know. Who knows? But that's what you would be able to do. And, from his perspective, I'm kind of giving some details here that I not perhaps nobody has even asked for, but I don't think at this point it's a big deal to reveal this. But I think for him, and perhaps a lot of former athletes, and I understand it personally, it is weird for them to talk. It's weird for them to be in a position doing something that ultimately plays no impact in the actual outcome of the game, and talk about it in a way where you're like one of the coaches or somebody who is right in the thick of the program. And I understand how that can be strange, how it can be strange to have literally been an individual who determines the outcome, or one of the individuals who can determine the outcome of a game or whatever, to being in a position where you're not pretending that you are, because that's not fully what it is, but you're no longer in that direct position to impact the actual game. You're now on the outside looking in, and I can see how it's just a different perspective. You're coming at it from a different vantage point. So, but the bottom line is, he never had a passion about it like I did. I don't think he particularly loved the University of Iowa like some former players have for many programs. Cardell Jones for Ohio State, Tim Tebow for Florida. I just think in general it was not that interesting to him, and and that's just the way it was. As I said, personally, the way I saw it was, this would be a great way for you to advertise your clothing brand for free and reach tons of people. And I'm kind of bummed that he didn't see it that way, because I really do believe that the sky was the limit with that. Because if you're a guy like him and you have the connections that he has, not only for the University of Iowa, but just football, basketball, anything in general, because when athletes know you played, especially basketball, baseball, and football, in particular football and basketball, when other athletes know that you played the game at a high level, there's just more of an understanding, more trust, and things like that. And it's only really with those sports, because I would talk to Cavante about my time as a Division I athlete playing water polo, and the respect was not nearly the same, which is fine. So, anyways, like I said, nobody has necessarily asked for this, but I just want to say thank you because a lot of you have been here since day one. And I really wish that I had started YouTube all those years back as opposed to doing Facebook. I believe on Facebook you can earn like revenue in similar ways to how you can on YouTube. Um, but in my eyes, YouTube was much better to be the main thing, and Facebook as a secondary way for people to consume the content, which I might do. When I just switched to YouTube, from Facebook, I did continue to post some of the clips on Facebook, which I may go back to. It's just the problem is, I don't have anybody else doing all that type of stuff. A lot of people will buy or not buy, pay for somebody to do that type of stuff because it takes time. It takes a lot of time. And I just don't have that. People have offered, but it's really hard to say yes when I don't know them particularly well. So I may go back to that, but the point is I should have done that from the get-go as the main thing, with Facebook being the secondary option. But it is what it is, and it has worked out just fine. This has been totally awesome, and I really am grateful for all of the support, especially over the last year and a half, 2 years of this switch. So, all right, guys, let's get into it. Iowa basketball. Full disclosure, and I've said this in the past, I know more schematically, just, I guess, the eye test, things like that about basketball than I do with football. I mainly know football from just a perspective of being a fan through the years, being an athlete, and things like that. But basketball was my bread and butter. I did play football, flag football in middle school, and I was the starting quarterback, but that was the last time I played that. When I got to high school, I decided to play water polo instead of football. Actually, I did football camp for like 2-3 weeks, and I actually did camp also in Iowa when I was thinking of living in Iowa for a little bit, but ultimately I loved where I was at so much that I stayed. But the point is that water polo became the sport that I eventually played Division I sports with, but basketball was my first love, and I ended up being the all-time leading scorer in my high school's history. My high school has like 2,000 kids, so it's a big school, and could have played college doing it. It was really hard to make the decision ultimately to play water polo, but the point is that I do know more about basketball than football, and I'm more than okay to admit that. Now, what do I like watching more? That's a debate for a different time. So Iowa basketball was struggling, and I told you guys at the beginning of the season, I said this Iowa basketball team, I said two things to you guys. Number one, this Iowa basketball team has a really high ceiling, but their floor is also very, very low, meaning the talent is on the roster, but if there are things that don't go their way, they can have a really low as well. Now, is it as low as other teams? Perhaps not, but for Iowa, low. And the second thing that I said with regards to Iowa basketball is the two things that they were going to have to figure out was shooting, in particular, 3-point shooting, and rebounding. And They struggled with that over their 3 losses earlier this season. Let's get their schedule pulled up, and in particular, the game against Rutgers. I mean, folks, there's no getting around it. Losing to Eastern Illinois is not good. That was a terrible, brutal loss. I mean, it was a historically bad loss. In the end, this is still Division I sports, and anything is possible. Very talented people, but they're also still youngsters. They're not pros in the same way that NBA players or overseas players are pros. They lost to Nebraska, which was a very winnable game. They lost to Penn State. Things were looking dire, folks. I said earlier this year when they eventually lost to Wisconsin that was going to bite Iowa in the ass, and it almost did. I mean, that was a game that was very winnable, that Iowa had multiple chances to win, but ended up dropping that game. And you look at where Iowa was at heading into the game against Indiana. Had they had that victory over Wisconsin, things would have looked way better. Way, way, way better. So anyways, fast forward, they beat Indiana at home, 15th ranked Indiana. That was a quad 1 victory for the Iowa Hawkeyes by 2. Indiana at points in that game were the stronger team. Iowa at points in that game was the stronger team. Against Rutgers, Iowa went into, and Robbie Hummel said this exact same thing, Iowa went into Rutgers arena and punched them square in the jaw and never looked back. Rutgers never really reacted. Rutgers was never able to impose their style of play on Iowa, which that's why basketball, well, just sports in general, is so interesting. When you get to these Big Ten matchups, you really do start to see style of play versus style of play, and it comes down to who can play their style better and impose it in a stronger fashion as opposed to the other team. And at times it's not Iowa, but so far this year, more times than not, it has been. They now have 2 wins in the Big Ten. They're 2-3 in the Big Ten. They have 3 games here at home: Michigan, Maryland, or excuse me, I don't know if they're all home games. Yeah, I believe they are 3 home games coming up: Michigan, Maryland, and Iowa. I think that they could go 3-0, 2-1, but they could also go 1-2. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they went 1-2 and dropped both to Michigan and Maryland. I am not completely back on the bandwagon, but as I said in my Facebook post, ultimately I was not overly concerned because I know the talent that exists on this Iowa basketball team. Now, in particular, what has Iowa done over the past 2 games that they weren't doing in their 3 losses? Well, number one, Filip Rebraca is playing like a beast. He is getting it done. Chris Murray has also looked really, really good. Connor McCaffrey, I think, we are seeing the pinnacle of what his abilities are. He had 16 points against Indiana. I always thought that Connor McCaffrey had the ability to score the basketball. I always believed he had the ability to score anywhere from 9 to 13 points a game, like averaging 9 to 13 points. And now that he's shooting the ball much better, which is great. I mean, he has become a legitimate 3-point threat, and it's not surprising. I mean, the guy has a good looking 3-point shot. He's got good form. He's fundamentally sound, all that good stuff. And he just plays with such grit. Like, you watch Connor McCaffrey play, and if like there was this one play against Rutgers where the Rutgers guy gives a little shimmy and totally jukes C-Mac and scores on C-Mac. And you see after Connor McCaffrey go like that. And because he was mad at himself for allowing that guy to score on him one-on-one. He takes things personally. He is a competitor. And that is one thing overall about this Iowa basketball team and this is why I think ultimately they will make the NCAA tournament, is they are extremely aggressive and passionate and feisty. And those were all the reports. I mean, that was some of the reports last year for last year's squad, but that was all of the reports from the coaching staff, from the media, everything about this year's Iowa team, like across the board. And it's true. I mean, Philip Rebraca, you see him getting an and one and doing this and doing the yelling in the opposing guys' faces, and one, all that stuff. You see Tony Perkins, I love that stuff. Now, in the end, you have to put it on the scoreboard as opposed to chirping too much, but I think it's great to have fire, to have grit and get after it. So, Chris Murray, Philip Rebraca, I would even say Connor McCaffrey have really jump-started this Iowa basketball team in the right direction. And then, of course, Peyton Sandfort. Peyton Sandfort, over the past 2 games, has had 2 really, really strong games. The only issue with Peyton Sandfort is at this point in his career, and I think this just may end up being the type of player that he is, like Sandfort is such a good shooter that I could see him possibly playing in the NBA. That's how good of a 3-point shooter he is as a 3-point specialist. But he, at this point, is so underdeveloped in the other aspects of his game that if his shots aren't falling, that's all he has. And I really do think that he has the size, maybe not the athleticism, but definitely the size to develop some other aspects of his game, like a post up, things like that, to where if it's not there, if the shot's not there initially, he can find other ways to get get in the scores column and get his confidence going, because all you have to do is see the ball go through the net one time and your confidence gets tremendously stronger. So those have been the 3 big reasons. I also said that it's clear Fran McCaffrey does not trust Riley Mulvey or Josh Ogundele. A lot of people responded back to me, well, Ogundele's injured. Okay, I know that, but still, he doesn't trust them. He hasn't played either one of them hardly at all, and I don't really see that changing. Maybe Ogundele might get some spot minutes here and there, but it's a bummer because when he has played, he's looked pretty good. The one negative I would say is against Indiana. Iowa really struggled defensively. They only won the game because Indiana struggled even more defensively. I mean, they allowed Indiana to shoot 54.2%, 54.2%, which is just not going to get it done. So let's take a look at Rutgers here. Philip Rebraca had 16 points. Chris Murray was 17 points. Aaron Eulis, 8 points. I thought Aaron Eulis played a pretty strong game. Connor McCaffrey had 6 points. Tony Perkins with 5. Peyton Sandfort with 22 points in 22 minutes. Desante Bowen and Josh Dix didn't really play much. And when Desante Bowen got in there, you could tell he was a freshman. He turned the ball over almost immediately. He did not have his head in the game. So yeah. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. I still have a lot of confidence in this Iowa basketball team. I think they can win all 3 of their next 3 games. I think ultimately they should shoot for 2-1 to 3-0. If they can go 2-1, that'd be good. If they could win all 3, that would be great. Just be above 500. You have to take care of home court in the Big Ten. You just have to. So that will be critical. On the Patrick McCaffrey front, I was hesitant to bring this up. Ultimately, guys, I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what types of struggles he's going through. I don't. And, I have my own personal opinions on the matter. There were some reports that what he did was brave and stuff like that. I don't know if I would go that far. Because in the end, it is just a game of basketball. But like I said, I have my own thoughts on it, but in the end, it doesn't really matter because the choice is done. His choice is done. Do I think he will return to playing basketball? I don't know. I have no idea. Again, overall, there's little known of his situation. Like, this kind of came out of nowhere. And if you watch how Patrick acts, he's a pretty confident guy and a pretty relaxed guy. So to me, just looking at him visually, it was kind of surprising. But you never know truly what is going on in somebody's mind, and, in their spirit. If you believe people have spirits, soul, things like that. So we'll see. I have no idea. I wish him the best. I've always said that I thought Patrick McCaffrey, given certain development, could play in the NBA. I mean, the guy is 6'8", 6'9", pretty athletic for his size. He can shoot the 3-point shot, and the NBA can always use 6'7" to 6'9" wings who can shoot the ball. They can always use that. So, will he be back this season? If I had to guess, I'd say no. I would say no, just because I think Fran McCaffrey understands this too. Ultimately, it would be very tough on the rhythm and the current trajectory of this Iowa basketball team. So I don't think he'll be back this year. And will he be back ever? I hope so, because he's a good player. And Iowa can definitely use his services for sure. Especially with Chris Murray likely going to the NBA after this year. Absolutely. I mean, Iowa is going to lose. This upcoming season is going to be the biggest testament to Fran McCaffrey as a coach, because they will be losing Philip Obracha, Chris Murray, Connor McCaffrey. They'll be losing key contributors, guys. Key, not just one guy, but multiple. So, all right, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comment section of this Iowa basketball team, Patrick McCaffrey situation, so on and so forth. Let me know if you were interested by the little Cavante Martin Manley behind the scenes information. Like I said, I don't think it's a big deal one way or the other that I revealed that information, because it's been a while now, and ultimately they're just more opinions on and observations from my interaction in time. So anyways, like, comment, share, definitely subscribe. It takes 1.25 seconds. Support a fellow Iowa Hawkeye fan out. And last but not least, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow and facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. Love you guys. See you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye.